Page 470. Page 470. Story writing. Story is a narrative tale that gives an account of imaginary or past events. Stories are loved by us. We like to enjoy stories, and sometimes we compose stories ourselves. So, story writing can be fun. But a story writer has some general plans to follow, some conventions to observe. Just as any writing skill requires constant practice, story writing also requires skill and practice. Needless to say, imagination is a crucial factor in writing stories. Some guidelines for developing a story. A story must have a definite span. It must not be too big or too small. একটি গল্পের নির্দিষ্ট পরিসর থাকা দরকার, এটি খুব বড় বা ছোট কোনোটি যেন না হয়। A good story must have a compact plot. A story must have a beginning, a middle and an end. একটি ভালো গল্পের অবশ্যই একটি ঠাসা ঘটনা, পরম্পরার ও ধারাবাহিকতা থাকবে। গল্পে একটি সূচনা, একটি মাঝের অংশ এবং একটি সমাপ্তি থাকবে। In a short story, there is little chance of character development within its limited scope. Yet, characters should be realistic. Even in fables, animals are made to speak like man. ছোট গল্পে স্বল্প পরিসরে কোনো চরিত্র ফুটিয়ে তোলার বিশেষ সুযোগ থাকে না। তবুও চরিত্রগুলিকে বাস্তবানুগ হতে হবে, এমনকি নীতিগল্পগুলিতেও জন্তুরা মানুষের মতো কথা বলে। In a short story, the event should be narrated in a chronological order of sequence. গল্পে ঘটনাগুলি বিবৃত হবে সময়ের ক্রম অনুযায়ী। The story is generally narrated in third-person narrative. Often the storyteller is the omniscient, omniscient narrator. গল্প খুব সাধারণভাবে প্রথম পুরুষের বয়ানে বলা হয়, বেশিরভাগ গল্পে লেখক হলেন সর্বজ্ঞ। The middle of the story should not have any new subplot. The action of the story should move swiftly towards its end. গল্পের মাঝের অংশে কোনো সমান্তরাল গল্প চলবে না বা নতুন কোনো সাবপ্লট থাকবে না। গল্পের ঘটনা প্রবাহ দ্রুত লয়ে শেষের দিকে এগিয়ে যাবে। The story must have an interesting conclusion. The action of the story should naturally lead to the ending. An ending that comes as a surprise makes the story even more interesting. গল্পটির পরিসমাপ্তি আকর্ষণীয় হতে হবে। গল্পের ঘটনা প্রবাহ স্বতঃস্ফূর্তভাবে তার নির্দিষ্ট পরিসমাপ্তির দিকে এগিয়ে যাবে। যে গল্পের সমাপ্তির মধ্যে বিস্ময় থাকে, সেই গল্পটি আরও আকর্ষণীয় হয়। There must be a variety in the description of people, places, thoughts, and happenings. Adjectives and adverbs play important roles there. A story is made more interesting in that way. গল্পের মধ্যে মানুষ, স্থান, চিন্তা বা ঘটনার বর্ণনায় বৈচিত্র্য থাকবে। বিশেষণ ও ক্রিয়া বিশেষণ এই ব্যাপারে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভূমিকা গ্রহণ করে। গল্প এইভাবে আরও আকর্ষণীয় হয়। A story is generally written in the past tense. However, to make the narrative interesting, some writers use dialogue or conversation. গল্প সাধারণভাবে অতীতকালে লেখা হয়। বর্ণনাকে আকর্ষণীয় করার জন্য কোনো কোনো লেখক অবশ্য সংলাপ বা কথোপকথনের ব্যবহার করে থাকেন। A story must have a title. It may also contain a moral message at the end. গল্পে সর্বদাই একটি শিরোনাম থাকবে। গল্প সাধারণভাবে একটি নীতিবাক্য বা আপ্তবাক্য দিয়ে শেষ হবে। Avoid habitual past and get right to the direct moving action. A story must hit the ground running. In this regard, the first and the last sentences should be the best two sentences in the story. অতীতের অভ্যাস নিয়ে কম কথা বলে সরাসরি গল্পের ঘটনার মধ্যে প্রবেশ করাই ভালো। গল্প সবসময়ই সরাসরি বিষয়কে পরিবেশন করবে। এই কারণেই গল্পের প্রথম ও শেষ দুটি বাক্য যেন গল্পের সেরা দুটি বাক্য হয়। Page 471. Chronological way of writing a short story. Reading of the hints/points. সূত্রগুলিকে পড়া। Giving a title to the story. গল্পের একটি শিরোনাম দেওয়া। Writing the events in chronological order. সময় অনুক্রমে ঘটনাগুলির বিবরণ। Developing the plot. প্লটের অগ্রগতি। Writing a conclusion. উপসংহার লেখা। Moral message. গল্পের নীতিবাক্যটি বিবৃতি করা। Revising the text of the story. সম্পূর্ণ গল্পটিকে পুনরায় পড়ে দেখা। While writing a story from the given hints or outline, one has to connect the ideas properly. The outlines or hints serve as a skeleton, while the story maker has to cover it with details which will be the flesh on the bones. সূত্রগুলি থেকে গল্পটি লেখার সময় লেখককে বিভিন্ন ভাবনাগুলিকে সঠিকভাবে যুক্ত করতে হবে সূত্রগুলির সাহায্যে। সূত্রগুলি এক্ষেত্রে কঙ্কালের কাজ করে, যার হাড়ের ওপরে লেখককে মাংসের আবরণ দিতে হয়। Writing stories from given outlines. Tabular form. একটা টেবিল দেয়া আছে, তার দুটো কলাম আছে। বাঁ দিকে a bee fell in a water body. A dove appeared, dropped a large leaf. Bee climbed safely. Some days later, a hunter aimed at the dove. The bee stung the hunter. The hunter missed the aim. Dove saved. ডান দিকে reading of the hints. Next, title, Reward for Kindness. Bandike. A bee bugged around the flowers by the bank of the stream. It was buzzed gathering nectar from the flowers. Then it decided to cross the stream to the flower on the opposite side. But flying across was too much for it. It grew tired and fell into the stream. Para. The bee tried hard to keep itself floating, but it was difficult. It was sure to die. At this moment, a dove was flying overhead. It realized the grave danger that the bee was in. The dove dropped a leaf in the water with its beak. B-E-A-K, close to the bee, and the bee climbed on it. Quote, "Thank you, comma, Dovey," unquote, comma, said the bee, comma, quote, "I owe OWE my life to you," unquote, stop. The dove smiled and taking up the leaf in its beak, comma, carried the bee safely to the bank. The bee dried its wings and flew back to its hive. ডান দিকে লেখা giving a title, reward for kindness, তারপরে writing the events in a chronological way, developing the plot. Then one day the bee was returning to its hive when it saw a hunter aiming at the dove. The bee remembered the dove's kindness. It quietly alighted, A-L-I-G-H-T-D, on the arm of the hunter and stung him just when he was going to press the trigger of the gun. The hunter cried in pain and missed the shot. The dove flew away, realizing the danger. The bee became happy. Finally, he could save his benefactor, Benefactor, and repay the debt he owed. Dandike, giving a conclusion. Next, one good turn deserves, Deserves, another. Dandike, moral. 1. Write a story using the given hints and add a suitable title and a moral. Points. A farmer had 4 sons. Sons quarreling perpetually among themselves. Farmer tried all means but failed. At last devised a plan. Asked the servant to bring a bundle of sticks. Called the sons. Gave the bundles to each of them and told them to break the sticks. Everyone failed. Then opened the bundle and gave 1 stick to each of the sons, told them to break the stick. They easily succeeded, gave them a practical lesson, advised the sons to stop quarreling and stay united. The bundle bundle of sticks. Basudev was an affluent farmer who lived in a far-off village. He had 4 sons. Basudev's life would have been happy, but the only trouble he had in his life was that his 4 sons were perpetually quarreling among themselves. They often fought on the flimsiest of the contexts. Basudev tried all means to resolve their disputes, but in vain. All of his advice fell on deaf ears. Para. On one fine day, Basudev sat in his courtyard, lost in his thought, wondering how to make his sons realize that this perpetual quarreling was harmful for them. Suddenly his eyes fell on a bundle of sticks. He had an idea. Quote, "Why hadn't I thought of it before? This way I can easily make these fools realize their mistakes, unquote," he thought. He called his 4 sons. When they arrived, he told them to bring the fagot, Faggot. Then he told each of the sons to try and break the fagot individually. All of them tried to do so in succession but failed. Para. Now Basudev opened the bundle and placed 1 stick each in the hands of his sons. He again told them to try and break that single stick. This time each of them broke that single stick with ease. He then addressed his sons and said, quote, "My sons, you all are like this single stick dash, fragile and vulnerable, stop. Then there is a definite possibility that you may be easily harmed by an enemy. But if you remain united like this fagot here, then no one, however hard he tries to hurt you, H-U-R-T, can harm any of you, stop," unquote. With this practical lesson, page 472, the sons finally understood that what their father was trying to make them understand. They admitted their mistake and promised to stay united. Moral. Unity is strength. Word notes. Affluent, সমৃদ্ধ, perpetually, বিরতিহীনভাবে, quarreling, কলহরত, flimsiest, তুচ্ছাতি তুচ্ছ, context, প্রসঙ্গ, determine, দৃঢ়প্রতিজ্ঞ, resolve, সমাধান করা, disputes, বচসা, In vain, ব্যর্থ, deaf, বধির, courtyard, বাড়ির উঠোন, wondering, নিজের মনে ভাবা, bundle, আটি তাড়া, faggot, জ্বালানি হিসেবে ব্যবহৃত ডালপালার আটি, individually, স্বতন্ত্রভাবে, succession, পালা করে, might, প্রবল শারীরিক শক্তি, ease, সাবলীলভাবে, fragile, দুর্বল, vulnerable, অরক্ষিত, on your own, কারো সাহায্য ছাড়া স্বাধীনভাবে, unity, ঐক্য, strength, ক্ষমতা, দৃঢ়তা. 2. Write a story using the following hints and give an appropriate title and a moral. Points. Summer day. A grasshopper, grasshopper, was hopping about, saw an ant carrying a grain of corn, asked him to join. Ant refused, saying he was busy stocking food for winter. Grasshopper refused to pay heed. Winter arrived, lack of food, grasshopper starving, saw the ant distributing food from the stock, realization of the grasshopper. The ant and the grasshopper. Once there lived a gay and carefree grasshopper, grasshopper. He was never worried about the future. On a bright summer day, he was hopping about in a cornfield, chirping and singing and dancing to his heart's content. Suddenly his eyes caught a long line of tiny ants bearing grains of corn. The ants were concerned only with carrying the grains to their nest. The grasshopper called to one of the ants, quote, "Why don't you come and join me instead of toiling so hard on this bright sunny day?" Unquote. The ant stopped and replied, quote, "I am helping to stock up food for the winter." Stop. "I can't stop and chat with you now." Stop, unquote. Saying this, he moved on but returned, quote, "I would recommend you to go and stock up for winter," unquote, he said to the grasshopper. The grasshopper, being a carefree fellow, replied, quote, "Why should I bother for the winter now? Why should I bother for the winter now? We have got plenty of food now. We will see when winter arrives." Stop, unquote. After this, each went his way. The grasshopper went on merrymaking, and the ant, along with its fellows, continued his toil. Eventually, winter arrived. The cornfields were covered with snow, and there was no food. The grasshopper found himself starving. At that time he saw the ants distributing the corn and grain from their stock that they had gathered during the summer. He realized that it is best to prepare for the days of necessity in advance. Moral. A stitch, stitch, in time saves 9. Word notes. Gay, আনন্দোচ্ছল, বেপরোয়া, grasshopper, ফড়িং, chirping, ঝিঁঝি করে ডাকা, heart's content, প্রাণ ভরে, bearing, বয়ে নিয়ে যাওয়া, grains of corn, শস্য মঞ্জরি, concerned, ব্যস্ত থাকা, company, সঙ্গ, toiling, কঠোর পরিশ্রমরত, recommend, সুপারিশ করা, bother, উদ্বিগ্ন হওয়া, merrymaking, আনন্দোৎসব, harvest, উৎপন্ন শস্য, starving, অনাহারে থাকা. 3. Use the following hints to construct a story and a suitable title and a moral. Points. A dishonest shopkeeper cheated people with false measures. One day his cheating was caught. was indifferent and haughty, Haughty, when asked the reason of cheating. A clever man resolved to teach the shopkeeper a lesson. Went to the shop and bought things, but paid less. When asked the reason, reply was an indifferent and haughty as the shopkeeper's. Lesson for the shopkeeper. A dishonest shopkeeper. Haran was a dishonest shopkeeper. He used to trick the unsuspecting villagers in the weights of the sold items. He gave his customers less than what was asked for by using false weights. Thus, Haran continued cheating his customers. Para. One day, a traveler to the next village stopped at Haran's shop to buy some refreshments. Now, this traveler was an intelligent and witty, witty man. While he was sitting there and having his refreshments, a villager came to buy some sugar. The shopkeeper, out of his habit, measured out less amount and gave it to the customer. The customer, as usual, did not understand that he had been cheated. But the traveler realized that Haran was cheating the villager. He confronted Haran, who was indifferent and haughty. He brushed aside the traveler and indignantly replied, quote, I measured less so that the poor villager has to carry less. Whatever I do, I do for their good. And here you are, unduly accusing me of deceiving my fellow villagers. Stop, unquote. The traveler devised a plan to teach the dishonest shopkeeper a lesson. He apologized to the shopkeeper and asked him how much he had to pay for the refreshments. When told, he paid the shopkeeper less than what he was asked to pay. The shopkeeper was furious and demanded the right amount. But the traveler feigned, F-E-I-G-N-E-D, an innocent look and humbly replied, quote, I paid you less so that you have to count less. I was trying to help you just like you tried to help the villager by giving him less load to carry. Stop, unquote. With these words, the traveler walked away, teaching Haran a lesson for life. Moral. Cunning, C-U-N-N-I-N-G, often outwits itself. Word notes. Dishonest, অসৎ. Trick, ঠকানোর কৌশল. Unsuspecting, অসংশয়ী. Customer, খদ্দের. Halt, বিরতি. Refreshments, জলযোগ, জলখাবার. Resume, পুনরায় আরম্ভ করা. Intelligent, বুদ্ধিমান. Witty, বাকপটু. Deceived, প্রতারিত করেছিল. Confronted, রুখে দাঁড়িয়েছিল. Indifferent, নির্লিপ্ত. Haughty, উদ্ধত. Brushed aside, গুরুত্ব দেয়নি. Indignantly, ধিক্কার দিয়ে. Devised a plan, ফন্দি আঁটল. Apologized, ক্ষমা চাইল. Furious, রেগে অগ্নিশর্মা হওয়া. Page 473. Demanded, দাবি করল. Feigned, ভান করল. Innocent, সরল. Humbly, সবিনয়. Bewildered, হতবুদ্ধি হয়ে গেল. Cunning, চাতুরী. 4. Write a story on the basis of the following points and add a suitable title and a moral to it. Points. A hot day, a crow flying, thirsty, flying in search of water, suddenly found a pitcher, little water at the bottom, puzzled at how to drink the water, saw pebbles lying around, had an idea, took the pebbles and dropped them into the pitcher. Water rose up, drank and flew away. The thirsty crow. Once a crow was on his way back after visiting his friends in the next village. It was a very hot day. The sun was blazing. The crow was thirsty. He flew in search of water, but to his disappointment, the village pond had dried up. He was in a miserable condition. Para. Then he noticed a pitcher under a tree in the courtyard of a village hut. He came down and peeped inside the pitcher and was delighted to see that the pitcher had water in it. He was very happy. Quote, "Thank God!" exclamation. "My prayers have been answered," unquote, comma, he said to himself. He lowered his head to quench his thirst, but he could not reach it with his beak. Then he realized that the water was lying too low for his beak to reach. He was disheartened. Quote, "How unlucky I am!" exclamation. "Even after finding water, I am unable to drink it," unquote, comma, he thought. Para. Helpless, the crow looked around. His eyes fell on some pebbles scattered nearby. An idea dawned upon him. He flew where the pebbles were, picked up one of the pebbles in his beak, and dropped it into the pitcher. He continued his task of picking up the pebbles and dropping them into the pitcher one by one. Gradually, the water level in the pitcher rose and was near the neck of the pitcher. Now he could reach the water with his beak. He drank the water, quenched his thirst, and flew away happily. Moral: where there is a will, comma, there is a way. Word notes: blazing, jolonto; disappointment, nirasha; miserable, durdashajonok; pitcher, kolshi; peeped, উঁকি দিল; disheartened, হতাশ হলো; scattered, ইতস্তত ছড়ানো; dawned upon him, তার মাথায় এলো; neck, বোতল বা কলসি ইত্যাদি পাত্রের গলা; quenched, তেষ্টা মেটালো. Next. Number 5. Write a story using the following points and add a title and a moral to it.